As I entered the classroom, I could feel everyone's eyes scanning me from head to toe, and I felt like an alien. Had I walked into New York Fashion Week, all the girls were so dressed up and fancy, and here I was in my farm girl overalls. The teacher asked me to introduce myself, and I pushed my hair back nervously. "Hi, my name is Jenny, and I just moved here from Texas." I could see a few kids snickering at my accent. A pretty blonde girl smiled at me and said, "Were you raised on a farm, Jenny? Were you friends with the cows and the horses?" "Yeah, actually I was. I really miss my pals already." When I saw more kids laughing, I realized they were just making fun of me. What was so funny about being friends with animals? Let's see how well you guys remember the last lesson. Who can give me the answer for this in 5 minutes? As everyone frantically scribbled away on their notebooks, I raised my hand after 30 seconds. "I have the answer, miss." Everyone suddenly turned to look at me. The two numbers are 14 and 5. The teacher looked stunned. "Well, that's quite remarkable. Can you please solve it on the board for everyone?" As I walked up to the front, I stopped for a second by the blonde girl's table. Just because I talk slow doesn't mean I'm stupid. "Hi, I'm Jenny, and I was born and raised on a farm in Texas. And this is the story of how I made the most popular, meanest girl in school beg me to love her." But before I continue, click like and subscribe. Later that day in the cafeteria, I walked around cluelessly with my lunch tray. People in the city seemed a lot more unfriendly than back home. I decided to go to the bathroom and eat alone when someone called out to me, "Hey Jenny, come join us." It was that girl from my class. I reluctantly walked over, and she introduced herself as Katie and her friend as Amanda. "I didn't mean to make fun of you, Jenny. I think you're absolutely adorbs, and you should hang out with us. We're the most popular girls in school. We'll help you fit right in." I was really surprised, but also uber grateful that someone wanted to be friends with me. So I started hanging out with them. And she wasn't lying when she said she was the most popular girl in school. Anything Katie wore or did became an instant fashion trend. One day, she came to school wearing a ridiculous hat, saying it was all the rage in Europe. And the next day, everyone was wearing the most abnormal hats I'd ever seen. Another time, she broke the heel of her shoe and was seen walking around the corridor wearing only one. And the next thing I knew, everyone was going around wearing only one shoe. These city people were so weird. Everyone was just nicer to me now that I was by Katie's side. I was getting invited to parties all the time, and I was always getting compliments on my wardrobe, picked out by Katie, of course. I was doing really well in my classes, too. In fact, the math teacher put me in the advanced class and urged me to join the Mathletes competition. It'll look so good on your college applications. But Katie was horrified when I told her. "Ew, that's social suicide, babe. And boys don't ask out nerds." That was sad news for me because I really had my heart set on one cute jock in our class, Alex. Every time he smiled at me, I had butterflies in my stomach, but I didn't want him to think I was some geek, so I didn't join the Mathletes. Besides, with my busy social life and tutoring Katie and Amanda after school, I really didn't have too much time. One afternoon, the two were over at my place and I'd gone downstairs to grab some snacks. When I came back, I heard them saying something that made me stop in my tracks. "Ugh, Katie, how long do we have to hang out with this loser?" "Shut up, Amanda. She's practically doing all of our math assignments right now. Do you want to fail math again? My dad will kill me if I do. We need the lame farm girl." Furious, I flung open the door to my room. I'd rather be a lame farm girl any day than a two-faced, backstabbing city witch. Get out of my room before I kick your skinny little butt. Jenny, come on. We were just kidding. Get out now. I took all the clothes and shoes she'd picked out for me and dumped them in a large garbage bag. I was so stupid for trying to fit in and being like her. Just then, I noticed that something was missing from my shelf. Oh, no, 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 no. Feeling panic, I looked for it everywhere. In my drawers, under my pillow, under the bed. I turned my whole room upside down and I couldn't find it. Oh my God, this was the worst thing that could have happened to me. Katie had stolen my diary. I was sweating bullets thinking about what she'd do with it. Just then, I got a message from her with a picture from my diary. I lost my heart to a city lad's smiles. Alex, your blue eyes are so divine. You look at me and give me butterflies, send me shooting straight to cloud 9. Let's meet tomorrow for lunch as usual. Shall we? This girl was pure evil. The next day when I met her and Amanda at lunch, I really wanted to throw my traitor smug face. Katie, I want my diary back. Babe, of course I'll give it back. You just have to do one little thing for me. I want you to steal the final math exam. My jaw dropped open. Are you crazy? I won't do that. Her face looked really menacing. Oh, yes, you will, if you don't want posters of your little love poem everywhere. There's only a week left, and I can't study for it. I need you to steal it tonight. Amanda will go with you. Of course, Katie. I'll just go steal the key from the principal's office from his secretary's desk, and we'll sneak into his office at night. Easy peasy. Seriously? This girl would jump off a bridge if Katie told her to. My stomach churned at the idea of breaking so many rules, but I really didn't have a choice if I didn't want to be utterly humiliated. That night, as we snuck into the school and headed to the principal's office, I felt absolutely terrified. But Amanda was in her element. She confidently unlocked the door and we crept in. She headed straight for the file cabinet and told me to hold up the torch while she looked for the paper. Just then, we heard some noise outside and we both froze. We heard footsteps coming closer. I instantly switched off the torchlight and dragged Amanda behind the big desk. As the door slowly creaked open, I closed my eyes and started praying to all the gods out there. This was it. I would be expelled. My parents would disown me. My life would be ruined. Whoever had opened the door suddenly closed it, and I let out a huge sigh of relief. And then we heard the lock click. Oh my God, I left the key in the door. It's probably that creepy janitor who lives here. What are we gonna do now? I completely lost it. Oh, we're just gonna have to wait till morning for the principal to find us here and expel us. And you know who gets to save her butt? Katie. Your best friend is a bully who doesn't care about you or anyone, Amanda. Friends don't get friends into trouble. That's not true. You're just jealous. Oh yeah? Then why didn't she come with us and sent you instead? I'll tell you why. She doesn't care about you. She doesn't care. Amanda stared at me silently for a moment. You're right. Katie really only does care about herself, and she's not even nice to me. I'm such an idiot. Listen to me, Amanda. We're not stealing anything. We have to figure a way out of here, and then we can deal with Katie together, okay? We tried opening the window, but it wouldn't budge. Suddenly, Amanda pulled at my hair. Ow! What was that for? Nothing. I just needed this hairpin. Why didn't you tell me you were wearing one? And with that, she marched towards the door and started tinkering with the lock. That stuff only works in movies. Just then, the lock clicked and the door opened. Amanda turned to me and grinned. Let's get out of here. The next morning, Katie was waiting for us at the bleachers for the math paper, and we certainly had one for her. You see, Amanda and I had spent the whole night making one up. I handed the exam to her and said, "Now can I have my diary back, please?" Not so fast. You're going to help me solve the paper and learn all the answers. You'll get the diary right after the exam. I'd kinda expected that, so it was time for me and Amanda to launch part 2 of our revenge program. She would follow Amanda secretly and find some dirt on her, and she would catch it on camera. I helped her prep for the exam all week, while Amanda hung out with her as usual, acting completely normal. One evening, Amanda turned up at my house looking super excited. I got it. I caught her on camera. I watched the video of Katie sneaking into an empty classroom, and minutes later, a boy showed up. I recognized him as Katie's boyfriend's best friend, and then the two of them started making out. Seriously, this girl was just the worst. On the day of the math exam, just before it was about to start, Katie winked at me. Wish me luck. Not that I need it. I grinned as I got the math paper and started working on it. Oh boy, this was gonna be so much fun. As soon as it ended and we all went out, Katie came charging towards me like a mad bull. She grabbed me by the arm and dragged me to an empty classroom. What did you do? I didn't know a single answer on the exam paper. Are you crazy? You made me fail the final. I'm going to completely ruin you. Not if we ruin you first. We turned around to see Amanda walk in. What are you talking about, stupid? This is your fault too. You couldn't even steal the right exam. Oh yes, I could. I just didn't. And this is what I'm talking about. and she thrust her phone in Katie's hands and played the video. Katie's eyes went wide in horror as she watched herself. Amanda quickly snatched the phone from her before she could smash it into a wall. "Give my diary back, Katie, or this video is going to be making all the social media rounds in no time, and everyone will know you're a cheater." Katie screamed in frustration and took the diary out of her bag and threw it at me. "Also, you just lost the only real friend you had. Being pretty or fashionable means nothing if you're a jerk on the inside. You're always going to end up alone." And with that, I put an arm through Amanda's and we walked out of the classroom. I decided I was done trying to be anyone but me. I joined the mathletes and actually won the competition for the school for the first time in years. And I'm friends with all the math nerds now. We're a pretty cool bunch. Oh, and on Valentine's Day, I wrote my lame love poem to Alex on a card and asked him out. We've been dating for 2 months now.
Hi, I'm Pumpkin, and this is my twin sister Zizi, and we are known as one of the hottest twin sisters in the United States. You see, when we were young, everyone admired how pretty we were, even though my parents are kind of hideous. So, when we grew up, Zizi and I started getting plastic surgeries to look even hotter. When I got a nose job, Zizi wanted one too, and when she got breast implants, I did it with her. We promised each other that we will always do everything together. And by everything, I mean every single thing. When I first got a boyfriend, for example, Zizi got super jealous because she couldn't spend much time with me anymore. So I decided that we were going to date Dan together because I depended on Dan financially and we couldn't afford to lose him. She started joining us on dates and it escalated until the point where she was sleeping with us in the same bed. But when it got to having a little fun time in bed, Zizi refused to join us, and it made Dan really upset. He thought that it was weird that she watched us kissing and mingling with each other, but never really joined. Until one time, Zizi touched Dan's leg, and he thought that she had changed her mind. So he started making moves on her, and it got her really angry. So both of them started fighting, and we ended up kicking Dan out of bed. I hugged Zizi all night because I didn't want her to feel bad, and I blocked Dan from everywhere for being rude with my sister. Since that day, Zizi and I decided that we didn't need a guy, and we started working together at a grocery store to support ourselves. So, we worked as cashiers. There were no other cashiers working at the same stand together, but our boss allowed us to work like this because we were hot and that attracted customers. And he was right. Business in the store was booming. All the guys lined up to pay at our stand, and they ignored all the other cashiers. So my boss decided to fire every other cashier at the store. After that, Zizi and I became the cashier department managers, and our paycheck doubled. We were so happy. So then our boss came and asked us if we can start wearing sexy clothes to work to attract more customers. At first, we said no, but when he said that our paycheck would triple, we couldn't refuse. So we started wearing bunny ears and short pink skirts that had bunny tails on them. After that, Zizi and I started making a lot of money. Each of our salaries went up to $10,000, so we moved into a new apartment that had a big pool and a hot jacuzzi. But then, our boss complained that customers were getting upset because we refused to go out with any of them. He said that if we didn't keep the customers happy, he would fire us. Zizi and I decided that we'll go out with one of the customers. Meanwhile, we look for a new job. As for our plan, well, there was a really cute guy named Roberto who was visiting the store every day. Zizi and I really liked him, but then he asked me out. He thought that I was the hotter twin, and it made Zizi very upset. So, the next day when I saw Roberto, I told him that I cannot date him. I didn't want to upset my sister because she liked him too, but that's when Roberto went up to Zizi and asked her out. I thought Zizi would say no because she knew I liked him, but that hoe said yes. I saw her flirting with him and touching his shoulder, and then they held hands. I got angry. I grabbed Zizi by her hair and took her to the car with me. "You hoe, you know I like Roberto." But then Zizi was like, "So what? He asked me out and I said yes." I was so upset. So I went up to Roberto and I told him that I would gladly go out with him. Roberto said, "Sure." And then he told me that he'll pick me up at night. At 9 o'clock, I was waiting for him outside my house, but that's when my sister stood beside me, and she looked like she was ready for a date. He was taking us on the same date together. I screamed at Zizi, told her to go away, but she was being such a bitch, so I took off my expensive heel and I hit her with it on the face. Zizi and I started fighting. When Roberto got there, we were on the ground. Most of our clothes had been ripped in the fight and our faces were smudged with makeup. Roberto started laughing at us. He asked us to calm down and we went back to the house to fix ourselves. We then all agreed that we should go out together on the date. It made sense because the three of us liked each other. So we decided to try it out and see what happens. Roberto took us to a really nice restaurant. He held both of our hands, flirted with both of us, and at the end of the date, each of us got a French kiss. It wasn't that bad, to be honest. Sharing Roberto, I mean. Zizi was super fun too, and I was used to her company. Since that day, we started dating Roberto together, and we did all the couple things with him. It was awesome. We left our job at the grocery store because Roberto didn't want all these men checking us out, and he started providing us with all the money we needed. But don't get me wrong, this wasn't a sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship because we were in love. A year after, Roberto proposed to us. He said that we were the love of his life and that he couldn't live without either of us. There was a lot to consider, but how could I say no to marrying the same guy with my twin sister and spending the rest of my life with the two people I love most? On the wedding day, Zizi and I walked down the aisle with our dad, and Roberto stood there with tears in his eyes while looking at us. The wedding was just magical. After the wedding, Roberto planned a honeymoon for us all to Zimbabwe. It was so much fun. We visited all kinds of forests, took pictures with snakes, and dined in some smoked crocodile tail. When we were on our way back on the plane, Zizi started screaming and swearing. Everyone was looking at us. I wanted to hit her in the face with my heel again, but she wouldn't shut up. She then held her breasts and said she was in so much pain. She still wouldn't shut up when we got to the airport, so Roberto took her to the hospital. Turns out that one of Zizi's breasts had burst on the plane. The doctor said her silicone implant burst because of the pressure in the airplane. The surgeons then removed one of her breasts, and Zizi was left with only one breast. She was upset about it, but I kinda thought that it was cool. Roberto, however, did not think likewise. He thought that it looked weird, and on top of that, he started to distinguish between us. "I can finally see who was the annoying twin and who's the cool one," he said. After that, Roberto didn't want to be married to Zizi anymore. Zizi was devastated, and she started wearing a fake breast that she stuck on her chest so people wouldn't notice. After that, Roberto only wanted to hang out with me. He would make Zizi clean and cook for us. He kicked her from the bed the three of us used to sleep in, and he wouldn't let her talk. I felt sorry for my sister, but on the other hand, I was still in love with Roberto, and I enjoyed being married to him. That's until the time we found out that Zizi was pregnant from Roberto. When he found out, he was so upset. He said that he didn't want a child from a one-breasted woman, and he wanted to kick her out. I told him that if Zizi left, I was going to leave with her. So we all agreed that she stays and that she would have this baby. But when the baby was born, Roberto never touched him. He said that he doesn't feel like he was even the father because the baby didn't look like him, and that he was sure that Zizi had cheated on him. So he sent her to live in a different house with the baby, and Roberto and I stayed in the house alone. I was upset about it, but I couldn't do anything because Roberto was so controlling. After that, Zizi tried to file for divorce so she can get money and child support from Roberto, but she later found out that he was only legally married to me because he can't marry two people at the same time. Basically, she had no right to ask him for any money. My sister was so angry, she came to me for help and asked me to divorce him so we can split the money and live happily together alone. But I refused. Who said that I had to leave Roberto just because the marriage didn't work out on her side? When I told her this, Zizi had a big fight with me, and we ended up not speaking to each other. After Zizi left, life with Roberto became hell. He would make me wear maid clothes and force me to serve him and obey his orders. He also said that he wanted a baby from me, but I didn't want to get pregnant from him, so I started taking birth control pills without his knowledge. Until one day, Roberto found out about the pills, and he took them away from me. I couldn't stand living with him, so after a while, I decided that I would run away to Zizi, and I would file for divorce. So I waited one night until Roberto was fast asleep, and I took my stuff and went to Zizi's. I got to her place at 3 in the middle of the night, but Zizi kicked me out and said that I was a forgave me, and she let me in. I started living with my twin sister and her baby. I was very happy that I was finally away from Roberto the monster. Until one morning, I woke up sick and I started puking uncontrollably. Turns out, Roberto had gotten me pregnant after all. When I went to see the doctor, he informed me that I was, in fact, pregnant with twins. Semitic twins, just like Zizi and I. This news had made Zizi very happy, but we had to hide this from Roberto so he wouldn't take our babies. So before my pregnancy started showing, Zizi and I filed for divorce. We hired a really good lawyer, and the court ruled that Roberto had to pay me half of his fortune. When I saw the check I had received after, I couldn't believe it. It was $3 million. I knew Roberto was rich, but I had no idea he was this rich. Anyway, I split the check with Zizi, and we raised our 3 children together in a loving home.